I've always believed that the worst nightmares come from outside, from dark alleys, strange cities, chance encounters. But now I know that the scariest stories are born in silence, behind doors that we ourselves bolt shut. Mine started with an inheritance. After the death of Aunt Clara, whom I hadn't visited in 15 years, I got her house. Not a mansion, not a hut, but an ordinary two-story building with peeling paint and a veranda covered with ivy. It's even strange that she bequeathed it to me. We weren't close. She rarely wrote, and I barely remember her voice. But there was a note in the envelope with the documents. You're the only one I can trust with this place. Don't look for answers, but if you find them, don't believe them. At first, I wanted to sell the house. But when I arrived to assess the condition, something caught on. Not nostalgia, but rather curiosity. The interior smelled of damp and old wood, and the floorboards creaked like teeth from the cold. On the second floor, I found a door without a handle, bricked up. A neighbor, Mrs. Gray, whispered that Aunt Clara kept her secrets there, but she didn't say a word more. There were boxes of diaries in the basement, yellowed with age. The first entries were innocent, recipes, shopping lists, drawings of birds. But the further away, the more often there were lines written with a trembling hand. He's knocking again. I won't open it. I can't. Who is he? In the last diary, the pages were torn out, leaving only the phrase, I'm sorry I didn't save them. I decided to stay for a week to sort through the archive. I bought groceries, checked the locks. It was stupid, but after the diaries it seemed like I was being watched. At night, I heard footsteps on the second floor. Heavy, slow, as if someone was dragging their feet. My heart was pounding, but I got up. No one. Only in the corridor by the wall. Up door there was a child's toy, a wooden soldier with a broken arm. I didn't remember Aunt Clara having children died on the third day. I found the letters. A bunch of envelopes hidden in the fireplace. The handwriting is male harsh. Clara, it's your fault. They're hungry. You have to feed them. The dates are 1948. The letters were sent intermittently for several months. The last ones were stained with something dark. One envelope contained a photograph of 3 children in school uniforms, their faces crossed out with crosses. On the flip side, they know where you are. In the evening, I lit a fireplace to burn the letters. The fire crackled, sparks flew into the chimney, but suddenly burst into green flames. Silhouettes flashed through the smoke, too clear for a hallucination. I ran out, slamming the door, and only then did I notice the scratches on my palm, as if someone had clawed at it. Footsteps again at night, this time in the basement. The flashlight was shaking in my hand as I descended the creaking stairs. I found a trapdoor in the corner behind an old refrigerator. It's padlocked, but the chain is rusted. There was a room inside 3 meters by 3 meters, and the walls were covered with chalk, hundreds of names, dates, and drawings. There's a mattress on the floor, animal bones, and empty baby food cans. And a diary. Not Aunt Clara's, but the other one, with the inscription J. Marlowe, 1947. G.S. notes were delusional. He wrote about the hungry who live in the walls, about the parcel that needs to be fed with meat. They are growing. Emily was picked up today. I heard her screaming in the pipes. Clara was laughing. Next are the recipes. Not food. Solvents, acids. We need to cleanse them of their flesh in order to free their souls. I went to the archive this morning. Aunt Clara lived here with her husband, John Marlowe. He disappeared in 1950, 2 months before the fire that destroyed the orphanage. Newspaper clippings read, the bodies of the children were found in the basement. The suspect, the caretaker of the orphanage, J.M., committed suicide. His wife, K.M., has disappeared. But there were no photos of the children in the file. Only the list of names is the same as on the walls in the basement. When I returned, I heard crying. Thin, intermittent like a baby's. The sound came from behind the sealed door. He took a crowbar and began to loosen the bricks. Behind them was a windowless room. On the wall, the words, "We are still hungry," are carved with a knife. There's a baby carriage on the floor and remains inside. And the note, "He made me. They're still here. Burned down the house. The phone is dead. The lights went out. I lit a candle. and then I saw them in the reflection of the window, 3 figures behind me. Not shadows, not ghosts. Children, dirty, with empty eye sockets, in rags of school uniform. They were whispering, "You're our dad now." I didn't turn around. Not immediately. The candle was shaking in his hand, casting reflections on the walls, and these reflections were moving, too fast, too vividly. The flame smelled like burnt hair. I took a step forward, then another, but the floor under my feet suddenly felt soft, as if it were rotten. Plaster mixed with something dark fell from the ceiling. Blood? Dirt? I didn't check it. There was a photo album in the corner of the room. Not old, 80s. The pictures show Aunt Clara, now an elderly woman, with a group of children in the schoolyard. They were smiling and holding plasticine crafts in their hands. On the back of one of the photos, Sunny Valley Shelter. 1983, children at risk. But the faces in the pictures were crossed out with black paint, and the caption read, "They shouldn't have survived." A floorboard creaked in the doorway. I whirled around. No one. Only the wind stirred the curtains on the only window, even though the window was boarded up. The air was thick as molasses, and there was a smell in it, not of decay, not of dust. Sweet, like baby food mixed with iron. There was a wet, shiny trail on the floor leading to the stairs. Not blood. Saliva? Saliva with lumps of wool. I went up to the bedroom. The bed was made up, but there was a child's drawing under the pillow, a house, a tree, 3 crosses in the backyard. On the back, "We are underground. You'll be there soon too." I dropped the drawing, and at that moment the smoke detector went off. Sparks from the wiring? Or I ran out into the hallway and saw black smoke seeping out of the cracks in walls. Not burnt, not caustic. It smells like mint and urine. Something was rumbling in the basement. Not footsteps, but blows. Rhythmic, like a metronome. I went down. The flashlight was shining weakly, but enough to see. The hatch that I had opened in the morning was now closed. There was a shiny new lock on the chain. And a note, "You're not leaving. They're waiting." In the morning, I found a canister of gasoline in the garage. I decided to burn down the house, as Aunt Clara asked. But when I set the rag on fire to throw it into the basement, I heard laughter. Not childish. Female. It was coming from the ventilation shaft. The same laugh as on the old tapes I found in the cupboard. Aunt Clara was laughing while a child was crying off screen. The police arrived 2 hours later. A neighbor called them after hearing the screams. But not mine. When they broke into the house, I was standing in the middle of the living room, clutching a bloody knife in my hand. There are fresh scratches on the walls and small footprints on the floor leading to the door. It's strange that the cops saw them. It's strange that they didn't detain me, even though I was covered in blood. They said the house was empty, that I was probably asleep and had a nightmare. But at the station, while the paperwork was being processed, one of the officers whispered, "Do you know why the Marlows went crazy? They fed the children from the orphanage with garbage from the meat processing plant. And when they started dying, they hid their bodies in the walls. But that's not all. They say Clara took their bones. For the soup." I'm writing this in a motel right now. Their faces are outside the window. Not ghosts. Children from the Sunny Valley. They survived. They've grown up. And they're still hungry that I didn't wait for dawn. I left the car in the parking lot at the motel, took my backpack, and walked along the highway. My legs carried me on their own, as if they knew where to run. But they were everywhere. In every lamp that blinked like a bad lamp in an interrogation room. In every sound of a truck passing by. The drivers were shouting something about kids on the road, but I couldn't see anyone except shadows in the bushes. 3 days later, I reached the city. Not his own, but someone else's, with a name that has faded from memory. I rented a room on the outskirts from an old woman who didn't ask questions. On the first evening, I checked the locks and boarded up the window. But they didn't come through the window. There was an envelope in the mailbox this morning. No stamp, no return address. Inside is a newspaper clipping from 1983. Fire at the Sunny Valley Orphanage. 3 pupils were killed. The reason is arson. The suspect is in hiding. And the signature, you knew them. You could have saved them. There is a photo on the back. I'm 10 years old, in Aunt Clara's backyard. Nearby are 3 silhouettes in the distance. Children. The old hostess brought lunch and said, you were asked. Children. They said you promised them ice cream. I ran out the back door, but there was a car in the yard. It's not new. It's rusty, with childish stickers on the back window. There was a doll inside. Her face was painted red, like blood. I found the bus station. I bought a ticket for the first flight I saw. The driver, a man with a Sunny Valley tattoo on his neck, smiled and said, we've been waiting for you for a long time. I grabbed the knife, the one from Aunt Clara's house. The driver laughed. Don't. We just want to talk. About Clara's recipes. About how she cooked bone soup. The bus started moving. The passengers, all wearing the same jackets, with the same scars on their faces, sang a children's song. 3 fugitives came out into the field from behind a hummock, from behind a bridge. Their voices sounded like the creak of unoiled wheels. I broke out the emergency window and jumped out on the move. I woke up in a ditch. There was a backpack nearby. It contains an album with photos from Aunt Clara's house. The children's faces were no longer crossed out in the pictures. They were smiling. Their eyes glittered like marbles. On the last page, someone wrote, you're our dad now. You have to feed us. I got up and went. I don't know where. My legs hurt, and I could taste the sweet stuff from home in my mouth. The policeman's words kept running through my head. They survived. They've grown up. And then I heard siren. An ambulance was speeding along the highway. The Sun Valley emblem is on board. The driver's face flashed through the window. A woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun. Like Aunt Clara's. She smiled and waved at me. I didn't wait for the car to stop. He ran, without taking apart the road, through bushes, ravines, until he ran into a fence. Tall with barbed wire. There's a building behind it. A former hospital, judging by the peeling sign. Now there's something like an archive here. There's light in the windows. He crawled through a hole in the net. The guard was sleeping in the booth, and there was an open folder on the table. Case number 447. The Sunny Valley Shelter. Closed due to... Then the text was filled with coffee. But the photos remained. The same kids from the album. It was only now that I recognized them. I saw it on the bus at the motel, in the rear-view mirror. The main building smelled of mold and medicines. There are maps marked on the walls. Zone A, quarantine. Zone B, food. I found a diary in the director's office. Not Clara, but another person. March 23rd, 1983. The Marlowe group is out of control. They started taking the children. They didn't kill me, they used me. Bones, muscles, skin for the broth. They say it cures. I tried to stop them, but they threatened to reveal my secret. The inspection is coming soon. We need to hide everything. I found freezers in the basement of the archive. In one, there are stacks of boxes labeled biomaterial, for research purposes. In the other, there are children's teeth strung on a string like beads. And a note, they don't feel pain. They want you to feel. He ran out into the street. It got dark. There's that ambulance in the parking lot. The doors are open. Inside is a wheelchair with straps on it, and a syringe. It's big with yellow liquid. On the label, KM's prescription for soothing. He hid behind the trash cans. Waited. An hour later, a truck arrived. 3 people got out of the cab, in overalls with their faces hidden under masks. One was carrying a sack, wiggling. They threw him into a van and drove away. I came closer. The bag was torn. There's a child's hand on the ground. Bitten. I returned to the city at night. I got a room at another motel. I found a box under the bed. It contains my childhood photos. And a letter from Aunt Clara. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth. You were one of them. But I saved you. Burned out the infection. Now it's your turn to feed them. There was a knock on the door this morning. Children's voices. Dad, we brought you a present. You're like us now. See, they were holding a jar. There was an eye floating inside. Mine. Torn out in an accident. I didn't answer. He didn't move. The police were shouting, but their voices sounded muffled, as if I was diving into water. The children's laughter in the walls grew louder. Not an echo, but a real choir. Then I noticed one of the cops had a scar on his neck. The same one that the bus driver has. Sunny Valley. He stepped forward, and at that moment, the basement wall collapsed. Not an explosion, but rot. The planks crumbled to dust, revealing a passage. There was a woman standing in it. A face like Aunt Clara's, but younger. In his hand is a knife with a bone handle. "You have to finish what you started," she said. "They're hungry." The police did not shoot. We watched her approach. I pulled out my revolver, but she laughed. "You're not going to shoot. You know that this is your family." And then I realized the cops' jackets, their shoes, were all made of the same fabric as the children's clothes from the orphanage. The woman rushed at me. I fired. The bullet hit her shoulder, but she didn't stop. She just smiled wider. "You always aim poorly." Her words stuck into my brain like hooks. Shadows crept out of the passage in the wall. Not ghosts, but people. Dirty, with skinned faces. They grabbed the policeman and bit into their necks with their teeth. Blood was pouring onto the floor, mixing with gasoline. I ran. I got out through the window. There's a crowd outside. Not adults. Children. 100, 200 pairs of eyes. They were whispering, "Dad, you promised to feed us." In his hands were cans of what was left of the police officers. I shot into the gas tank of the car. Explosion. Flame. He ran through a field until he fell into a river. The water smelled of iron. I found a bag on the shore. It contains a gun, money, and a passport in my name. And a note. "Run. They're everywhere." I'm on the train now. The compartment is empty. Only the old man opposite is reading the newspaper. Headline: Mass murder in the suburbs. The suspect is a former employee of the Sunny Valley shelter. The photo is my face. The old man smiles. He has no tongue. Instead, there's a scar, similar to the ones I saw in the basement. He holds out his hand. There's a child's tooth in it. My tooth. I staggered back, hitting my head on the glass. The train was rushing into the tunnel. The old man stood up, not taking his eyes off me. His mouth was moving as if he was chewing something. Then I saw. There were pieces of skin between the teeth. Human. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. They're heavy, like the guards at the orphanage. The old man opened the compartment door a crack and whispered, "They're here." And he disappeared. I jumped out into the vestibule. 3 men in railroad uniforms were walking toward me. The faces are covered with masks. Syringes are in his hands. Jumped off the train, on the move. He fell into the bushes and rolled over. There is a highway nearby. I stopped the truck. The driver is a woman with gray hair. "Sit down," she said. "I know who you are." We drove in silence. 2 hours later, she stopped at an abandoned bridge. "Look for a hole under the boards." It's true. There were skeletons in the pit. Dozens. All with tags. Patient number 12. KM's son. My tooth in my pocket started to burn like a coal. I threw it away, but it stuck to my palm. The woman laughed. "This is not the end. You're part of the chain now. They'll eat you until you get hurt enough to become one of them." I found a hut in the morning. Inside is a man with no legs. "I've been watching you," he croaked. "You have to kill her." The woman from the train. "She's next in line." I didn't listen. He went out, but turned around on the threshold. There's a photo of me on the wall, with the date of death. Today's. I didn't wait for the man in the hut to say anything else. I ran out, but the same female driver was standing on the street. He had a knife in his hand, and blood was running down the blade. "You've been running for too long," she said. "It's time to feed." There was a pit next to the hut. Fresh earth, a shovel. I rushed into the forest, but the trees seemed to be moving, slowing down. The branches clung to the clothes like fingers. An hour later, I went out to the highway. The ambulance was parked on the side of the road. The driver is an old woman with a bun like Aunt Clara's. She waved her hand. "Sit down. I'll take you to a safe place." The cabin smelled of bleach and blood. There are syringes and empty blood bags on the shelf. Do you know why Clara chose you? What is it? She asked, not looking at the road. You were the only one who could digest their flesh. A special protein in the blood. She's been testing you for years. I grabbed the knife, but the old woman laughed. Don't be silly. You can taste it, right? Sweet like baby food? It's them. They're already inside. The car stopped at an abandoned factory. There are dozens of people in identical lab coats inside. They were butchering the bodies. Not adults, but children. The meat was put in barrels with the inscription, Children's Aid Fund. One of the workers came up to me. His face is scarred, his eyes are empty. You have to choose, he croaked. Either you feed them or you become fodder. I ran to the exit. There were shouts and laughter behind him. There's a lock on the door, but there was a key nearby, the one that the guard from the archive left. When he got out, he fell to the ground. The taste of rust is in my mouth. Her hands were shaking, and her nails were broken. There's a photo in my pocket. I'm 10 years old with Aunt Clara. There's a new inscription on the reverse side. You're already dead. I just haven't stopped yet. I ran until I hit the river. The water is black and thick. There's a boat on the shore. There was a boy in it. 10, maybe 12 years. Scarred face, eyes like mine. They're waiting for you, he said. On the other shore. Cross the forest. The old house. Not the one he inherited, but the other one. There's light in the windows. He entered. There's a woman inside. The mother? No. A face like Aunt Clara's, but younger. You came, she smiled. We were preparing a place for you. There's an album on the table. My photos, with dates, weights, and tests. Last entry, ready. You can start feeding. There is a kitchen in the basement. Pots, knives, barrels labeled Clara's soup. There are recipes on the wall. Children under 10 years old, 500 grams of meat per serving. Salt to taste. The woman grabbed a knife. I fired. The bullet hit her shoulder, but she didn't fall. She just laughed. Do you think it hurts? It's nothing. That's when they start eating you from the inside. He ran out into the street. The car. The driver is a man with a scar on his neck. Sunny Valley. He wasn't surprised to see me. I know who you are. Sit down. I'll take you to the others. We drove in silence. 2 hours later, the city. Not mine. Alien. We stopped at the hospital. There is a sign in the lobby, Children's Department. The sponsor is the Clara Marlowe Foundation. There are children in the wards. Associated. There are syringes on the bedside tables. The doctor in the white coat turned to me. They want you to feed them. It's your duty. I ran. Through corridors, stairs. I found a way out. There are police officers on the street. Not mine. Strangers. Stop it. Stop it, they shouted. You're under arrest for the murder of Clara Marlowe. He fired into the air. I ran until I fell. The taste of blood is in my mouth. Sweet, like baby food. I woke up in my office. Not a hospital, but an office. On the table there are monitors, folders labeled Solar Valley Project. In front of me is a man in a suit. You have passed all the tests, he said. A unique case. Your body assimilates their DNA. Now you are the connecting link. The children came through the door. The ones from the photos. Alive. But the eyes are empty like dolls. They will listen to you, the man nodded. You're their new dad. The last thing I remember is the syringe in my hand, and children's laughter. Not in my head, but in the corridors. Everywhere.